All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass featuring Pulenta. My name is Antoinette Londejean from Cork and Fork in DC. We're a premium wine store founded by a multi-generational flying winemaker originally from France. I am delighted to introduce today's producer, Pulenta, represented this evening by owner and export manager Eduardo Pulenta and head winemaker Javier Lo Porte. There is much to share about the beautiful wines from this prestigious estate, so I will simply offer a quick overview before we pass it over to the Pulenta team. The family has been a prominent and respected force in Argentine viticulture for multiple generations. Edu and Hugo Pulenta, sons of well-known viticulturist Antonio Pulenta, founded the estate in 2002. The 100% estate-grown wines, under the guidance of Javier Lo Porte, head winemaker, seek ripeness and focus on balance and elegance. The winery itself is surrounded by 320 acres of estate vineyards. It enjoys excellent climatic conditions for high-quality wine growing and sits at an elevation of 3,200 feet. For those joining us live, we would love to hear from you. Place your questions in the chat and we will get to them time allowing. We will move immediately into the presentation. There's a lot to cover tonight, so Edu and Javier, whenever you would like, please jump in and tell us about your wines.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. As they just mentioned, we have a long history in winemaking. I'm actually fourth generation. So just to introduce, if you can, that picture we are seeing at the moment is the underground cellar of our estate, which normally we use it as an institutional picture because we like very much when people come into the winery, go downstairs and find those beautiful concrete walls. If we can go to the next slide, that is a kind of our mission. We were always trying to improve our wines. That's why we say we produce limited series of great wines. That is normally what my dad, Eduardo, always says, because when he built this winery and we built it together, he was always thinking in small tanks, small fermentations. So each tank, each barrel is a limited production. That's why it's part of our mission. Okay, there in that picture you can see my family. In the center is my uncle Hugo, who is a partner of my dad. Next to him, in his left, is my cousin Nina, and then my brother Diego. And they are sitting in the barrels is my dad Eduardo, and I'm Edu. My dad is same as Javier, is the only winemaker of the Pulenta family. So he has a lot of experience, and Javier, well, then he will talk, but he's been working with us for about 15 years. So as I mentioned, we are Italian immigrants. My great-grandfather came from Ancona in 1902. Then they established in the province of San Juan, that is the north of Mendoza, right? And started working the land and planting vineyards first as contractors, means that they hired the land. And then in 1916, because we have a book of the family, they were able to buy the first own land and start building a winery. We have a very nice history because during the 20s and 30s, my grandfather, he was born in the vineyards, born in Argentina. So his eldest brother was the only one born in Italy. And he was born in the vineyard in San Juan, and from the very beginning started producing wines. And it took them about 50 years to be the first producer in Argentina in terms of volume and quality. That winery, you probably know, was called Peñaflor, which nowadays owns a lot of brands. My dad started working with him in about 1972, I think, when he got his graduation of enologist, and he worked in Peñaflor for 30 years, till 1997. Then the family was too big, so they decided to split and sell the Peñaflor company. And so my dad decided to build his own winery. And there I was studying also engineering, industrial engineer, and I got involved with him, and we started building Pulenta Estate in one of the vineyards planted by my grandfather in Agrelo. So there you can see the two brothers, Hugo and Eduardo. My dad does not speak English. If not, we would invite him. My dad is the CEO. Hugo, his partner, is the vice president. Then we have Javier as a head winemaker, Facundo as a chief agronomist, myself, I'm the export director, and also I manage domestic sales together with my brother Diego. Now Nina, who is not there, is also responsible for the Europe market. And then of course we have a very nice team in hospitality with Constanza here. At the moment we have 73 people working in the winery. It's a lot. Half of them work in the vineyards, and half of them between office and the winery. That picture you see of the winery is what we call, this was established, we established this with Javier and the team, as we call the research and development winery. As you can see, they are all very small tanks of 1,000 liters, and all roll fermenters, barriques. Here is where we make all kinds of new developments. Well, you can see in that picture, we use 3 types of fermentation tanks: stainless steel, concrete, and also oak. Then Javier, when we go through the wines, he can explain you more about it. But the idea is to have small fermentations, yes, and this allowed us to have very good quality. At the moment, we have 2 vineyards. Both of the vineyards were planted by my grandfather, yes. This vineyard is a picture of La Zulema, where it's located in the region of Agrelo, Luján de Cuyo. We call it Alto Agrelo because it's a high part of Agrelo. As you can see in the picture, it's in the foot of the Andes. The altitude there is about 1,000 meters, 3,000 feet. There are very good climate for irrigation. Climate, and we get irrigation from underground wells, and everything goes through pipes and drip irrigation. As you can see, we're in the foot of the Andes, where we call the Cordón del Plata. That is a very nice vineyard, and it's a quite big vineyard. It's 130 hectares. It's about more than 300 acres. In that moment, this was planted by my grandfather together with my father in 1991. So vineyards are around 30 years old. In that moment, they used to plant big extensions of vineyards with different varieties to be able to harvest, right, in different timings. For example, we start with Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and then we continue with the reds, Malbec, Merlot, Cabernet at the end. Well, very important is the quality of the water there. It's a very good quality. Now we are replanting some new vineyards, mainly with Malbec, because in that vineyard we have mainly Chardonnay, as you will see in the next slides. We have mainly Chardonnay and we had a lot of Merlot. So we've been replanting mainly with Malbec, that is best grade adapted. You can see in that map from the Chardonnay lot that were 32 hectares. Now the lot number 1 and number 2 were being replanted. Number 1 with Malbec, number 2 with Cabernet Franc. So this is part of renewing all our vineyards. The other vineyard that I will talk later is called, we call it Don Antonio in the name of my grandfather, and is located in the Uco Valley. They are very different. We like to show this little slide because it really shows the difference of the terroir. As you can see here, the soil has a little bit more alluvial soil with more clay, a lot of stones. Compared to the other vineyard, you find is a more sandy vineyard, right? So, well, this is very nice. There you can see a picture of Don Antonio. This is a huge vineyard. 400 hectares is more than 1,200 feet. Square feet, acres. Sorry, you're speaking acres. 400 hectares is like 3 times in acres, so it's like 1,200 acres. It's huge. So from this vineyard, we only produce, I would say, a quarter of the production. The other 80% is we sell it to other producers. So we are able to select some of the best grapes. And why, you will ask, why is so big? Because in that moment, Don Antonio, when he planted this vineyard in 1981, they were with the Peñaflor group, so they needed a lot of grapes. Then when they sold and we kept this vineyard, it's like too big for us, but we love the quality of these grapes, and Antonio was a pioneer in this vineyard, so we are trying to keep it. The Malbec is from this region, is amazing. The altitude is a little bit higher, you know. Agrelo is 1,000 meters, this 1,200. So it's like 4,000 feet above sea level. As I mentioned, this soil is a little bit more sandy, so the roots can explore even deeper. Also, you have more exposure to the sun being higher, so we get better colors with, especially with the Malbec, and more minerality. Well, then we will taste. Well, this is the map of the vineyard. As you can see, for example, from Malbec, this in that moment was the biggest plantation of Malbec in the Uco Valley. 110 hectares of Malbec. It's very difficult to find so big vineyard of Malbec. And as you can see, there are many varieties with the same purpose, because Antonio was thinking in the moments of harvest. So starting with the whites, then with Malbec, at the end, the Cabernets. It took him, it's incredible because he planted this vineyard in the 70s, 80s, and he was already 60 years, and took him 20 years to complete all this plantation. The last plantation, he did it like in, I would say, I don't know, Javier, if you remember, but it was maybe 1980, 2002 or 3.
2002.
Was, yeah.
You're right.
2002. Maybe he was 82 years old, planting vineyards for, well, but was his passion, and now we are trying to keep all the tradition and great. We always say that we make wines with purpose, and the reason is, this morning we were speaking with my cousin. We are really, I would say, I don't know the word in English, but comprometidos. We are like very commit with the environment, and that's why we've been certifying sustainable standards. We started with Global Gap, then we certified HACCP, and finally last year we certified Bodegas de Argentina Sustentabilidad. That is the logo you see in the right bottom. It means that we control all the pesticides and any chemicals that we use. Also, the use of water, trying to be as more sustainable as possible. We are working now in an organic Malbec, certified organic Malbec, and gluten-free. This last January, we also did a very nice investment in solar panels. We have 240 solar panels to be able to produce our own energy. So this will give us a step up in being sustainable with the environment, and trying to leave the land as we find it. That's the main idea. Okay, we can go to the next one. Well, our wines. I was thinking that the best people to talk is our head winemaker, as I mentioned, Javier. He is a professor, he's a teacher in the University of Mendoza winemaking. He spends a lot of time with students, and also he's professor in chemistry, and he's also with us for 15 years. So he has a lot of experience in what we do, our philosophy, focusing in quality and being sustainable. That is the purpose. So I will introduce Javier to speak about our wines. And of course, any doubts, I will be online.
Okay, thank you, Edu. Hi, everyone. Well, thank you very much for being there. Well, as Edu says, we as a winery, as a team, we are focused in the quality. We are focused in consistency and sustainable, but principally we try to make drinkable wines even in our top premium level. Well, the idea maybe it's to explain a little bit the different range of our winery, and then we can start, if you want, Donny or Antoinette, with the Sauvignon Blanc, okay? But first, we can introduce with our different lines the concept, the philosophy of Pulenta Estate. It's trying to have the influence of those two beautiful vineyards that we have, one in Luján de Cuyo, Alto Agrelo, and the other one in Uco Valley, that now you know that it's a very very known and on-fashion place to grow vines in Mendoza. But the idea in all of our lines, it's the concept of those two terroirs. Principally in La Flor, we can see that we have very young kind of wines. The concept of La Flor as an entry level, it's trying to have a very fruity Malbec, then a very spicy and typical Cabernet Sauvignon. At the end, in the terms of the red wines, we have a blend that it's interesting. Maybe then we can talk a little bit about the blend, but it's a blend between Malbec and Cabernet, but with a little bit of Merlot. That Merlot is very important for us because since Don Antonio Pulenta planted those vineyards, start thinking in Merlot, then it was funny, but when I start working with Eduardo, he asked me the first day what was my varietal that I prefer, and was funny because his varietal was Merlot and the same one for me, and well, was a chemistry because both, and we always use a little bit of Merlot in all of our blends because we are going to talk when we taste our Merlot, but the Merlot give us a different kind of things, principally in the blendings. Okay, then we have a rosé, 100% from Malbec, and at the end a Sauvignon Blanc. Then the next step, it's our Reserva level, that it's our states. We have again a Malbec, but the interesting thing, it's all of our Malbecs in the entry level La Flor and Estate, it's a blend of both vineyards. Okay, we use Agrelo and also Uco Valley. In terms of Cabernet Sauvignon, for La Flor, for Estate, and for Gran, it's 100% from Agrelo. The idea, we are going to talk then when we taste our Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot, but Agrelo have a special climate and soil for those varietals in terms of our style and our philosophy. And then in Pulenta Estate, we have a beautiful Pinot Gris that now we make a different kind of bottle, a restyle. We use an eco bottle because we tried, again, in this line of sustainability, we try to use less heavy bottles. And obviously, we also use a little bit of recycled crystal. And then our Pulenta Estate Sauvignon Blanc that now today we are going to taste it, and then our Pulenta Estate Chardonnay in this same level. Well, okay, if you want, we can start with the Sauvignon Blanc. okay? Well, maybe I can show you the restyle that we made also for our Sauvignon Blanc in terms of the conservation of the wine. Remember that the wine, it's very sensitive to the light, and in that way we decide to change the bottle in an eco bottle, less heavy bottle, and also with this color to protect the Sauvignon Blanc. It's a very delicate varietal. Because of that, we change the bottle, and also a few things that we are going to talk about today. In terms of winemaking, I can tell you that in this case, we can separate and compare Sauvignon Blanc Pulenta Estate from La Flor, because in La Flor Sauvignon Blanc, again, like Malbec, we use a blend between Sauvignon Blanc from Uco Valley and Sauvignon Blanc from Agrelo. But in this case, we use 100% from Agrelo, because in this case, this Sauvignon Blanc gives us the opportunity to have different moments of harvest, trying to have freshness, volume, and then concentrations there in terms of the last harvest, okay? In this case, we fermentate 3 moments of harvest. The first one, like I said, we try to have more acidity. In that moment, we have a little bit more of green perception, okay? Descriptors of grass, but principally citricness. But the first and a more important thing is, in this case, we have low alcohol and better acidity, and principally a little bit of malic acid, okay? Malic acid, that is the second acid that we have in the wine. Principally, remember that we have in the wine principally tartaric acid, okay? But the second one, most important, it's the malic acid. We're going to talk about a little bit about the malic acid because it's very important for the whites and also for the red wines. But in this case, the first part, it's a very early harvest, good acidity, malic, citricness, and also those kind of descriptors of Sauvignon Blanc, but principally focus on in the grass and in the lemon. Then generally, we try to wait 10 days, more or less. It depends obviously on the harvest, but then the second harvest start giving us a little bit more tropical kind of perception. Obviously, we're going to have a little bit more sugar, we're going to have a little bit more or less acidity, but principally a component of pineapple, tropical fruits, and a little bit more volume, mouthfeel. And then again, we wait 15 days, a little bit more, and at the end, we have the last component with more concentration of sugar. Obviously, at the end, we are going to have more more alcohol, yes? And those fermentations not only are going to have more alcohol in terms of alcohol. When you say alcohol, you know that we talk about ethanol, okay? But in this case, the last part of those fermentations, we start and try to fermentate very at low temperature, okay? Here I'm going to try to explain a little bit, and I always need to put a little bit of chemistry, okay? I'm going to try to make it easy, but again, like Edu says, I teach chemical enology in the university, and I always need to talk about chemistry, okay? But it's easy, because when you start making the fermentation at very low temperature, the yeast, that it's a kind of fungus, obviously, that the yeast make the fermentation, the yeast take the sugar and produce alcohol, ethanol, okay? But in this case, when you make the temperature up at low temperature, it's a little bit stress for the yeast, and the yeast naturally produce another kind of alcohol, okay? Obviously in less quantity, okay? But start producing a kind of alcohol that it's called glycerol, okay? That kind of alcohol give you the sensation, the mouthfeel of sweetness. In this case, you perceive sweetness without sugar, okay? That, again, at the end, give us the opportunity to have the first part, acidity, freshness, malic acid, the middle part of the harvest, tropical things, okay, pineapple, etc. And the last part, volume, mouthfeel, sweetness from the alcohol. At the end, we blend all of those fermentations and have this beautiful component and this beautiful complex kind of Sauvignon Blanc. Trying to, in this case, we don't use any oak, okay, because the idea is try to respect the typicity and the varietal. But when we start saying with Eduardo, okay, we need mouthfeel, we need volume, but we have acidity, we have freshness. Okay, we are going to make a Sauvignon Blanc without malolactic fermentation. Okay, what is malolactic fermentation? Okay, again, chemistry. Alcoholic fermentation, we understand that alcoholic fermentation is the fermentation of sugar that, again, like we said, is the fermentation between yeast that they take the sugar and produce alcohol, okay? That is clear, yeah? Okay, but when we finish the alcoholic fermentation, we have a second fermentation that is called malolactic fermentation, okay? We said that the principal acid that we have in the wine is the tartaric acid, okay? And all of us, we know and we taste I don't know, for example, a lemon, okay? What kind of acid we have in the lemon? Citric acid, okay? Yes? Okay, everyone agree about that. Okay, citric acid, okay. And in the apple, for example, in the green apple, all of you ever taste a green apple, okay? It's a very aggressive, it's acid, okay? Well, in the green apple, we can find another kind of acid that it's malic acid, okay? Indeed, the scientific name of the green apple, it's Malus domestica. Malus domestica, malus came from malic acid, okay? You can Google that, okay? But in the wine, we have principally, in the white wines, we have principally tartaric acid, but the second acid, in terms of concentration, it's a little bit of malic acid, like the green apple, okay? Excellent. For example, for this wine, this perception of green apple, for us, it's very useful. Give us freshness, give us brilliance in the wines, okay? But for the red wines, we don't want that kind of acid, okay? And in this case, in the red wines, we try to produce that second fermentation that transform all the malic acid, okay? That acid that reminds us the green apple, aggressive, that acid, that green acid, transform this acid in lactic acid. When we talk about lactic, we think in cream, in milk, in yogurt, okay? Something that is more soft, more gentle, okay? Okay, in reds, we produce 100% of malolactic fermentation. That fermentation is naturally produced by bacteriums, okay? Obviously, we need to control that, but naturally, we produce in all of our reds malolactic fermentation. Malic acid, that green acid, in lactic acid, something more soft, more creamy for the reds. But in this case, we don't make any malolactic fermentation. We preserve all the malic acid that we have principally from the first harvest, okay? That give us freshness, softness. Okay, perfect. But
Javier,
like we were talking about,
what temperature normally you need to get the wine to get the malolactic fermentation?
Sorry, Edu, no te escuché. ¿Cómo dijiste?
What temperature you need to get in the tank?
Well, generally, it's interesting. It's interesting that thing that Edu asked, because the way that you can manage the malolactic fermentations is trying to decrease the temperature, okay? You need 20 Celsius to produce the malolactic fermentation, okay? But the idea is try in the Sauvignon Blanc to preserve. Okay, we have the acidity, but we need those that we were talking about, the mouthfeel, the volume. In a way, we have that volume and that structure from that fermentation, the glycerol and the ethanol, but also this wine, when we make the blend with these 3 moments of harvest, we spend more than 3 months putting in contact all the lees, okay, all the sediment from the yeast, because the sediment of the yeast, the lees, give us mouthfeel, okay? They release a kind of components, okay, that it's called manoproteins, okay? They are polysaccharides that give you that perception of volume, of mouthfeel. In this case, we have mouthfeel structure without oak, okay? And in this case, we have a wine with a lot of freshness. We have a wine with mouthfeel, with sweetness, but without oak, with all of the flavors of the Sauvignon Blanc, okay? Yes, was clear. A lot of chemistry, but yes, for humans, okay?
To get an idea, 20 Celsius is like 68 Fahrenheit degrees.
Okay, but the idea, obviously, also we work very hard in the vineyard trying to protect the grapes from the sun with the canopy. Also, between lines, we plant a kind of natural grass to don't have the reflection of the sun in the soil through the clusters. A lot of things that we made to preserve the freshness, the acidity, and the typicity of the Sauvignon Blanc. Okay? Okay. Questions? Something? No? Okay, clear? Okay, we can change to the wine, and we are going to go to the Chardonnay state. Okay? Okay. In this case, it's another concept, but it's the same philosophy again. Work very hard in the vineyard, trying to protect the fruit, and again, making different moments of harvest. In this case, we make 2 moments of harvest, not 3 like Sauvignon Blanc. But the idea is a little bit different because in this case, we are going to make a first harvest, trying to have the citricness, the acidity, the malic acid, the tartaric acid from an earlier harvest, trying to have freshness, low alcohol, and good acidity, okay? And this part, we are going to ferment in a stainless steel tanks, okay? Trying to have very cold fermentations, trying to produce a little bit of glycerol, and trying to preserve principally the aromas, okay? Because you know that all the aromas, if we increase the temperature, we lose it, okay? But the idea is try to keep in this portion of the blending, this portion of the wine, okay? And then in this case, we wait more than 15 days, more than 2 weeks, sometimes 20 days, sometimes we wait a month trying to make a second harvest. In this case, we are going to have a Chardonnay more mature with a different kind of aromas and descriptors of Chardonnay. And in this case, we are going to fermentate 100% in oak barrels, okay? In this case, are very low toast oak, new oak. We prefer French oak because it's a little bit more for Chardonnay. It's a little bit more delicate. And also, in this case, we are going to make the fermentation in the oak. We are going to spend a few months in the oak. And also, we are going to try to produce the malolactic fermentation in the oak, trying to have that perfect balance between the oak and the lactic acid. Remember, again, malolactic fermentation, malic in lactic through the work of the bacteriums, okay? That is a natural process, okay? We don't add bacteriums for this process. But if you wait and you finish the fermentation, the alcoholic fermentation, you start producing the malolactic fermentation. At the end, we have two beautiful components. One, it's a very fresh and young wine with good acidity. In this case, we're going to perceive more lemon, more citricness. And then the second fermentation, the second part, it's going to be a little bit oaky wine. It's going to be a more mouthfeel, more structured kind of Chardonnay, and obviously more creamy Chardonnay because of the concentration of the lactic acid that we have from the malolactic fermentation. And at the end, again, we made a blend because we want everything inside of the bottle. But in terms of percentages, always we try to use more percentage of the young, of the first harvest of the fresh wine, and then the other part of the oaky or the late harvest. Okay, in terms of percentages, we can talk about kind of 55% or 60% of the first harvest and the other part of the oaky fermentation. Obviously, when we finish the fermentation, we spend not more than 6, sometimes till 9 months in the oak, but never more than that, because again, we want, if you taste, you are going to perceive that kind of honey that you can perceive from the oak, that kind of coconut. We always say a little bit of vanilla and we said dulce de leche, obviously, but obviously always with that kind of citricness, that typicity, and that kind of white flowers from Chardonnay. Okay,
Javier, it's just so rare to see new oak on a wine of this price point, but also so well integrated. It's refreshing to see.
Well, you know, it was a very long work, and it takes us a lot of years trying to define the kind of toast that we need for this wine. Okay, that is the most important thing. Obviously, always we use, I tell you that more, probably the 80% are principally new oak, but we use some used barrels because always give us some complexity. Okay, the oak, it's amazing, but in the second year, the third year, the fourth year, some barrels give you complexity that you can find when you taste it, not in another moment. Okay, but principally we use 80%, 85% new oak, but again with this very soft toast, principally French oak. We're going to talk about the oak also in the red and top premium level, because it's very interesting that you ask about that, Donnie. Thank you, because it's very interesting to talk about the oak and principally in top premium lines. Okay.
And it's funny because yesterday we were at the winery with all the winemaking team, Javier, my dad, Facundo, and we were tasting the Chardonnay 2021, which will be launched next year. We were tasting kind of blind, comparing with the 2020, and everybody agree the wine needs more time in oak. So we say, okay, my brother was in a trip, so we say, okay, let's pre-taste next Tuesday to have conclusions if the wine will spend 2 or 3 months more in oak, or it's okay. So we're always trying to find that balance between the oak character and the fruit.
It's very interesting that Edu says, because we as winemaker team always we try to work principally in one concept that for us it's a key point, that it's the consistency. Okay, we are going to try to have always consistency. You are going to taste our 2019 Chardonnay, and then our 2020 or 2021, and you're going to feel and to perceive that kind of line of consistency that we try to have in our wines. Okay. Also, because of that, like Edu says, we taste and we retaste our wines, trying to think, okay, we need, obviously always thinking in a little bit more quality, but always trying to talk about consistency. Okay. And some key points that as Pulenta Estate we have, it's that we have very big vineyards to be consistent. Okay. We have a beautiful and big vineyard in Agrelo. We have a big and beautiful vineyard in Uco Valley. And in that way, we can be consistent. We manage the vineyard as we like, as we want. And in that way, we can manage. That is a very big key point. Also, obviously, Mendoza have a very consistent climate. That is another key point. Our climate, it's a very consistent. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the different years, the harvest, but and we are going to perceive, to taste a little bit differences, okay? But in terms of concept of the wine, the style of the wine, you are going to perceive always consistency, okay? We put a lot of time in that, in the quality and in the consistency. And like Edu says, we taste the Chardonnay, and sometimes we make the blend and we said, okay, it's beautiful exponent of Sauvignon Blanc, of Chardonnay. It's a very fruity, but in a way, we need more aging. And sometimes it's not only the perception of oak, okay, because the aging give you a lot of things. Because of that, Edu says, okay, we made the blend between the stainless steel tank and the oak, and then we said, okay, we are going to go for a few weeks or a month again to the barrels, okay? And in that way, you have again a beautiful balance, trying to go in the way of the consistency, okay? Again, that is the most beautiful that you can perceive in this industry, because it's a biological process, and it's all the years are a little bit different, and to have the consistency and the quality, you need to work all the time and taste and retaste and make these things, okay? Okay, was clear? Okay, perfect. Let's go to the reds, okay? Okay, we are going to start with our Cabernet Sauvignon. Was like that? Yeah? Okay, excellent. Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay. It's funny because we have Cabernet Sauvignon in Uco Valley, and also obviously in Agrelo, but with Eduardo, we always said the same thing, that the terroir that we have in Agrelo for these three varietals, for Merlot, for Cabernet Sauvignon, for Cabernet Franc, it's amazing. Like Edu says, in this vineyard, we have a very different kind of soil. The profile of soil in this vineyard, it's the first part, a little bit of clay, okay? It's a little bit more compact kind of soil. The first part, it's principally clay, okay? Then sandy part, sandy profile, and in the last part, we can start looking a little more kind of stones, okay? Clay, sand, and then stones. And the clay give us a different kind of things, and principally a beautiful kind of maturity, principally for these varietals, okay? Generally in Argentina, it was common to find very aggressive kind of Cabernet Sauvignon, okay? And in this beautiful place, this part of Alto Agrelo, with this beautiful kind of profile of soil, but also not only because of the profile, also in Alto Agrelo, we are like you saw in the presentation, we are not so far from the Andes, We have a lot of ¿cómo se dice pendiente, Edu?
I would say
Okay, different altitude.
altitude,
okay?
Altitude.
And that gives us the opportunity to have thermal amplitude, to don't have frost in this place. Well, like Edu says, I work with the family since 2006, and since 2006 we never have had a frost in this vineyard. That it's beautiful because give you the opportunity to wait for the maturity, to wait for the softness, and principally for this kind of varietal, Cabernet Sauvignon. We wait the perfect maturity, and I always said the same thing. Again, Javier, chemistry, okay. We always think in two things that are very important for the balance. First, the perception and the tasting and the tasting of the fruit, okay? We go to the vineyard, we taste the grapes, we taste the seeds, we try to crunch the seeds, we saw and we perceive the concentration of sugar or acidity, but tasting the grapes. But then we take a sample and we go to the laboratory. We have a beautiful laboratory that in that place we analyze acidity, sugar, and also polyphenols, okay? When we talk about polyphenols, we talk about color, tannins, astringency, color, anthocyanins, a lot of components that give us information also, and plus the tasting, that the tasting of the fruit that we made in the vineyard. And then in that way, we take the decision, 50 chemistry, 50 tasting, analyze, sensorial analyze, okay? Then we take the decision of the harvest. Okay, wall cluster. Well, it's interesting, but in Cab Sauvignon, we don't use whole clusters, but in Cab Franc and in our Pinot Noir also, we use whole bunches for the fermentation, not more than 10%. In this case, no, but in a Cabernet Franc, we use a little bit. This Cabernet Sauvignon was the perception. It's because we wait a lot of time, we wait the perfect maturity, and you perceive the tannins from the seeds principally. That is similar like the tannins of the stem. Okay, when you have a very mature stem, you perceive the similar kind of tannin. Good tasting, Steven. But it's like that. We wait for the maturity, and we take the most important decision that we have. The moment of the harvest. Okay, we harvest very earlier. We harvest very fresh the fruit, and then we process in the winery. Obviously, we make 100% hand harvest, and the people that make the harvest, they are families that work near to our vineyard. They work with us since, I don't know, 20 years ago, and they know what we need to harvest. Okay, we show them that we need the perfect bunches. And they make a beautiful work. They harvest very early. We have in the winery very cold bunches, and then for us the first selection is the hand harvest, okay? And then we make a bunches selection, then with the stem, and we make a berry selection in a sorting vibration table, okay? Was clear or was it a little mixy? No? Okay. Then when we select the berries, we fill a kind of hoppers that we have, okay, of 500 kilos. And then those kind of hoppers we take with the forklift and we fill all of our stainless steel tank concrete pools or concrete vats by gravity, okay? And also we take the barrels and we fill our barrels in the sorting table, again by gravity. We try in that way, we try to don't use pumps because we want to start our process with full berries, okay? and again, I'm going to talk a little bit about chemistry, but well, I'm going to try to make it easy. It's very important when you have full berries in the first part of the process, because we make in the first part a maceration pre-fermentative, okay? A maceration without fermentation. We spend 1, 2, or 3 days at low temperature, 8 Celsius, and in this part, we add a little bit of dry ice, okay? The concept is to make that moment, to make a maceration between the must, between the juice with the skin, okay? At low temperature, trying to solve all the typicity, all the aromas, all the descriptors of the Cabernet and all the varietals to the use, okay? Trying to have all that flavors previously the fermentation, okay? Okay, 1, 2, sometimes 4 days at 8 Celsius, very cold maceration, okay? That gives us, again, the opportunity of the aromas, and also the same thing that we talk about the whites, okay? We spend those 3 or 4 days at 8 Celsius, and then we release the temperature. And the temperature start increasing, okay? In that moment, we add the yeast. When the fruit have, I don't know, maybe 12 Celsius, very cold. And we start all of our red fermentations at low temperature. That gives us, again, the same thing that Sauvignon Blanc. It's not only alcoholic fermentation that produce only ethanol, we also produce glycerol, okay? Glycerol, that alcohol that gives us mouthfeel, sweetness, and principally you are going to taste in our Cab Franc, that sweetness. You say, okay, you have a little bit of sugar here. No, it's a dry wine, but you are going to perceive sweetness principally from the glycerol. Something that is very, very interesting, all of these wines, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, our Grand Malbec, and also our Grand Corte, all of them are very small fermentations, like Edu says, very small concrete vats, beautiful concrete vats that we built in our winery, also very small stainless steel tank, and also barrels, and those roll fermenter that Edu says, that those are barrels of 900 liters that we make the fermentation rolling, okay? They are over a kind of system with wheels that those barrels we can move and roll to put in contact all the skin with the yeast during the fermentation. It's very interesting because we use those kind of barrels also from France, but it's very interesting because it's a very delicate extraction with the oak and with the fermentation. It's beautiful, beautiful components. But at the end, it's the same thing that we were talking about whites. We have different components, concrete, stainless steel tank, and those beautiful fermentations in oak. And at the end, we make a blend, trying to have principally from the stainless steel tank, principally fruit, from the concrete, more structure, more concentration, and from the oak, obviously a component with the influence of the oak. But the most interesting thing is when we harvest, the same moment of harvest, that grapes, a part of that grapes, we fermentate in oak, we fermentate in concrete, and the other part in a stainless steel tank. The same moment of harvest. Again, it's a lot of complexity and a lot of things in the same bottle. Obviously, these different fermentations go separately through the oak. Again, in this case, we are talking probably we use 50% new oak, 50% used oak, sometimes 16 months, 18 months, 12 months. It depends on the tasting, because when these lots of wine have, I don't know, 10 months, 12 months, we start tasting barrel by barrel. And in that moment, we decide if we leave a little bit more in the oak or we take out, okay? But also it's very interesting to think and to understand, like Donnie, you asked me, we use 50% new oak, and also we use beautiful barrels with 3, 4, or even 5 years old barrels that give us complexity, that give us aging, but not perception of oak, okay? That is beautiful because it's a hard work, obviously, select barrel by barrel, but at the end, it's that give us those different things that you can find in this Cabernet Sauvignon, okay? Obviously, you are going to taste the typicity of Cabernet Sauvignon, those spicy pepper, kind of red bell pepper, also kind of mint in a way, also, and principally black fruits, okay? Okay. I don't know if we are okay with okay? Okay. We're perfect. When we talk about Cabernet Sauvignon from Agrelo, you are going to find something like this. A soft Cabernet Sauvignon with typicity, but drinkable. Even being this top premium level, we try to have a Cabernet Sauvignon that you want to enjoy, that you want to drink, even along without food, okay? That is the idea. But obviously pair beautiful with a piece of meat, no? Okay? Like our Grand Malbec, you will see. Okay, maybe if it was clear, we can move to the Cab Franc, yeah? Okay. Perfect. In this case, we're going to talk again with a beautiful exponent of Cabernet Franc. Like Edu says, this is amazing because Don Antonio was a pioneer thinking in plant Cab Franc in 1990, in 1981. In that moment, no one in Argentina was thinking in different varietals than Malbec or Bonarda, okay? And he started thinking in try new varietals. Also, he planted Petit Verdot, he planted Tanat, he planted a lot of varietals you saw in the Uco Valley vineyard. Also Syrah, we don't use Syrah, but a lot of varietals that no one started thinking or thought in Argentina. And was the same thing for Cab Franc, okay? Since, I don't know, the last 8 years, Cab Franc in Argentina became on fashion, but we start with Cab Franc since 2002. We made Cab Franc as a single varietal, and it's a beautiful exponent of Cabernet Franc. In this case, the same thing, very similar like Cabernet Sauvignon, but in this case, we are going to have few secrets that obviously are not secrets, but few things that are very important for Cab Franc. Principally, like we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, but in this case, we put a lot of attention in the moment of the harvest, because when we harvest Cab Franc, we don't want that green pepper, that aggressive green pepper, okay? We need to perceive a beautiful and soft spices in Cabernet Franc. Okay, the first moment is the moment of the harvest. We have a lot of experience in this vineyard. It's a beautiful part. It's a special block number 11, that we use principally for 100% for our Grand Cabernet Franc. The moment of the harvest, we harvest again very early during the morning, very cold bunches. We process very early in the winery, trying to keep that temperature. And then we make the maceration pre-fermentative, okay? We start our fermentation at low temperature to increase the mouthfeel, okay? To increase that sweetness. If you taste, you can perceive that sweetness that is beautiful. And always This one reminds me, we're going to talk first with the pairing, because obviously you know that in Argentina we make and we eat a lot of meat, a lot of barbecues, okay? Yeah, you know that. Okay, perfect. But always when we make a barbecue, we cut a red bell pepper, okay? We take all the seeds and we leave like a shell over the grill, okay? We crack an egg inside, we put a little bit of olive oil, black pepper, and a little bit of salt, and you leave there. Obviously, always with a piece of meat, okay? But you leave there. Obviously, you need to cook slowly because you don't want to burn the pepper, okay? But when you are going to see that the pepper is ready, because when the egg is done, you taste that red bell smoky pepper, and reminds me always this Cab Franc, okay? That red bell pepper, sweet smoke, always and pair beautiful with this Cabernet Franc. But the idea is that trying to have a red bell pepper that reminds you sometimes also when you cook the jalapeno, that toast jalapeno, but principally in the nose, okay, in the nose. But then when you taste, it's sweet red bell pepper, okay? Again, that fermentation at low temperature, the first part of the fermentation at low temperature, give us that glycerol that give us that mouthfeel and that softness, okay? And then obviously you need to pay attention during the extraction, okay? Because Cabernet Franc, it's very subtle to the over extraction, okay? And at the end, you have a very aggressive kind of Cabernet Franc. Because of that, we try to work very soft the head, okay, the skin during the fermentation. We make a very soft pump overs and also soft punch downs, trying to mix very softly, okay? Not too much time. Sometimes our Cabernet Franc generally don't have an aggressive or a very intense concentration of color, but it's enough concentration because it's a very complex kind of wine, okay? And then again, the same thing like we were talking with Danny about the oak, okay? The oak, the Cab Franc, it's very delicate with the influence of the oak. And Cab Franc love the malolactic fermentation in the oak. It's amazing, but you taste the malolactic fermentation in the oak with the Cab Franc and it's beautiful. That mix between lactic acid, the creaminess of the lactic acid of the malolactic fermentation and the perception of the soft oak that give us the aging in the oak. In this case, like you were talking about, Danny, in this case, we use less new oak in the Cab Franc. We use generally a little bit more used oak, but obviously beautiful barrels that we keep with us for this, principally for this wine, okay? And then obviously in this kind of wines, we always make the bottling and then we spend more than a year in the cold storage and then we release, because the idea also is try to have again the balance of the wine in the bottle, okay? Perfect. Okay, was good? Plus an special kind of pairing, okay? You can make in your house. It's very easy to cook. It's very easy to make. Sometimes if you put a little bit of bacon, also pair beautiful, okay? But it's very, very easy to cook and to make. Okay. One of our icon wines, our Grand Malbec, that it's for us one of our beautiful wines. In this case, it's another world because this is our Grand Malbec 100% from Uco Valley. Till now, we were talking about the beautiful things about the soil and the climate and the terroir of Agrelo, of Alto Agrelo in Luján de Cuyo. But now we are going to talk principally about Uco Valley. Uco Valley, it's a little bit more aggressive kind of climate. It's a very, very sandy and stony soils. In that place, we have very, very cold nights and very hot days. its very highest valley. And in this case, we have at the end a beautiful concentration, principally for Malbec. The vine reacts to all of this stress, producing more concentration and a more thick skin, okay? Why? It's naturally, it's biology. The vine trying to protect the seeds, okay, to the aggressive of the sun, to the stress of the sun, of the soil, of the poor soil, because generally there we don't have too much nutrition in the soil. Also the wind too, and obviously the thermal amplitude. Because of that, generally at the end, we don't have skin in our grapes, we have leather, okay? Trying to, again, naturally, the vine trying to protect the seeds. Obviously, we as a winemaker use that natural production naturally from the vines, and we take our Malbec from, again, a special block that is block number 40 that we use principally for our Grand Malbec. In this case, it's a more violet and perception of the color in Grand Malbec. And in this case, we make something different, principally for the moment of the harvest, because we have this vineyard a little bit far from the vineyard. We start harvesting by night, okay? Because in that way, we have the grapes in the winery at cold temperature, okay? In this case, also, we use a little bit more of the dry ice, trying to have a maceration pre-fermentative, very cold maceration pre-fermentative. And then we make this kind of extraction that in terms of Malbec, we try to have more freshness, more violet kind of colors, but in a way, in this case, we made the malolactic fermentation principally in the concrete vats, small concrete vats, because Malbec, I always like to say that Malbec appreciate, and principally Malbec from Uco Valley, give us that kind of minerality, like Edu we're talking about, that we can find in Uco Valley, okay? We have more minerality that you can perceive kind of how do you say, pencil mine, you say? Yeah.
Graphite.
Okay.
Graphite.
Okay,
Graphite.
kind of graphite, yes, like the graphite of the pencil. It's something like that. It's difficult to explain, but when you taste and you try to think about that, you're going to taste that mixing about those violet lilies typical from the Malbec, okay, those black fruits from Uco Valley, also with a little bit red fruit, but principally black fruits, and also that kind of perception of graphite mixed with the malolactic fermentation, and also mixed with the aging in the oak. And in this case, it's 50% new oak and 50% used oak. In this case, if you taste, you're going to perceive it's the most concentrated wine that we have. And because of that, we need generally more time in the oak, trying to have a concentrate wine, a concentrate Malbec, a typical concentrate Malbec, but also a drinkable Malbec. We don't like to have an astringent kind of Malbec, okay?
This wine also has as you saw in the technical sheet, it has a percentage of these grapes are coming from Gualtallarí. Maybe you've heard of that region, where it's a very well-known region today for Malbec. So you see you can see in the technical, it says Gualtallarí is an even higher vineyard that we use to blend for this Grand Malbec. Gualtallarí is 100 and 300 meters and is more than 4,000 feet above sea level. Okay.
It's interesting that Edu says that, because we start with this small vineyard since, I don't know, 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah, maybe 2010.
Okay. But start working because for us was a beautiful place. We managed that vineyard, and then we release a single vineyard from Gualtajari. And then we start looking that give us beautiful things. And sometimes when we select the barrels for the single vineyard, like Edu says, some barrels would take 4 Grand Malbec because it's 100% Uco Valley, and Gualtajari also is in Gualtajari. It's a part of Uco Valley. Because of that, give us the same thing, that something that is only a little bit different from Gualtajari is that give us that minerality, but also kind of herbs that you can perceive, kind of oregano and other wild herbs that you can find in Gualtajari. Again, those barrels that we select, it's only to add complexity to this beautiful wine. And in this case, also, I would say the same thing with a beautiful steak, juicy steak. It's per beautiful, per amazing, okay? But again, it's the typical concentrate Malbec, okay? Okay, and now we are going to the big guy, okay? Gran Corte. Why we call the big guy? Because at the end, it's a beautiful wine with a lot of complexity, and it's like a grandparent, okay? Like all the experience, all the complexity. This is a beautiful blend between 5 varietals. Principally, the heart, it's Malbec, then Cabernet Sauvignon that give us the spiciness, all the pepper. Then Merlot that we were talking about. Merlot always give us roundness, softness. Then we use a little bit of Petit Verdot. Petit Verdot always give us kind of dry fig, those black things, like, again, herbs like oregano, but principally dry fig, black fruits. And at the end, a little, small part of Tannat. Remember, Tannat came from tannins. It's a very juicy and concentrate kind of varietal, and give us that kind of bloody perception of mineral, of ferrum, okay? That complexity from Tannat. Always, it's a small percentage. Always, all the years have the same 5 varietals, but obviously the percentages in focus in the consistency, the percentages always are a little bit different. And obviously all these varietals fermentate separately. All of those varietals, Malbec fermentate in stainless steel tank, concrete and stainless steel tank and oak. Again, the same thing with Cabernet Sauvignon, the same thing with Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Tannat. We have a lot of different fermentations. All of them go separately to the oak, but something that it's beautiful from this wine, that it's at the end, Gran Corte, it's a barrel selection of all those different kind of fermentations. We start tasting, I don't know, maybe generally this month in August, we start tasting in August, and that tasting, always we need 1 or 2 months to taste all of the barrels, to select the best barrels, and at the end, make the blend. At the end, it's the barrel selection of our best barrels of our cellar. It's amazing because sometimes our new oak, old barrels, different percentages, but at the end, always thinking in the quality, in the concentration, but principally in the consistency and in the complexity, okay? Okay, you taste it? Okay, I don't know if you have, I don't know, something that you want to know.
First of all, Javier, thank you. I know people are enjoying the wines very much. It's perhaps the most active masterclass we've hosted where comments were done outside of the main chat. So Lots to share here, and I'm not quite sure where to begin. But for the group, I just wanted to tell you guys that Pulenta is definitely a historical winery, as Edu and Javier have shared, not only for the quality of their wines, but also because they are one of the first premium level wineries globally that took a liking to using screw caps. And they did so when screw caps had not yet been sort of accepted by wine consumers. So in that sense, on all fronts, you're doing amazing wines, you're making amazing wines, you have your experimental winery that you use. And it's very, very cool. The other thing is there's a guest in the audience here, and I won't embarrass her by name, but she's visited you and has shared a couple of comments. And if the guest would like to jump on and share, I don't know if that's a yes, if that's trying to be unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Nalini,
Yes.
tell us about your experience.
Thank you so much. I was introduced to Pulenta because of Cork and Fork 8 years ago. About 5-6 years ago, I came to Argentina. I visited Pulenta, and I think it was Michelle. I'm not sure, but I think her name was
Michelle.
Yes, who organized the entire morning, afternoon for me. It's one of the best trips, and I just have to say, your wines, I love Cab Franc. I've always liked Cab Franc, but you have elevated Cab Franc for me to a whole different level. I will drink no other Cab Franc. So thank you. But I will say, if anyone gets a chance to actually go to Pulenta, what I loved, I mean, I love seeing the lab, right? You talked about the lab. I saw it. I have a photograph of it. It's brilliant. My dear friend here is a scientist. We were listening enthralled to you, Professor Lo Porte. It was fantastic.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
But I will tell you, the highlight of my tour was not necessarily, it was the tasting, of course. And I drank a lot of wine, and I have a great tolerance for a lot of wine. But I love the start of it, where you taught me how to smell. And it was laying it out and saying, just start, forget the sip, just feel and smell the aroma. Learn how to recognize this is strawberry, this is apple, and here's why. So thank you. I mean, for me, Pulenta will always be the highlight for me.
Thank you very much.
You know this. You're one of my favorite Argentinian producers, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you.
It's absolutely true. And if anyone,
Prove it.
that's right. If anyone's looking to buy the Cab Franc, we are out of stock, and that would be merci to Nalini for buying the last bottles of our inventory today. But it is true, Javier and Edu, that really as I mentioned to you before we got online, that Pulenta has been really a very near and dear producer to us. And we're very grateful for the wines that you continue to make and the quality that you continue to make and the consistency that you do as well. So as we prepare to log off, Javier, would you like to share some final thoughts? And then Edu, we will ask you the same question.
Okay. Javier?
Javier, any final thoughts to share with us before we say goodnight?
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much for all the time. Sometimes a little bit difficult, and I know that my English is not so very good, but I do my best. But in terms of, we try to show you that we love, that it's the winemaking, the winery, and we try to show that we are a family, and we try to produce, again, that, like we were talking about, wines with passion, wines with heart, and also consistency, quality, but always thinking in the consumer. Thank you very much for your time, and well, it was a pleasure.
Excellent.
Well, for me, it's a pleasure, of course. The same is not easy for us in English because I've been 2 years, I've been traveling 20 years with the winery, yes, since 2001, 2002, and it's been now 2 years without getting into a plane. As you know, Argentina has closed the borders, so we are not able to fly. So it's good because I have a chance to be more at the winery with the family and the office. But you lose the fluency in the English. But yeah, it's great to share this. And as Javier just mentioned, we enjoy a lot doing what we do, making great wines.
Mm. And since this is being recorded and will eventually make its way to YouTube or be shared with others in our staff, I have to say that a big thanks goes out to Ed Sorensen for introducing us to the Pulenta line and for everything Ed has done for Argentinian wine in the DC market. And for those of you who've been shopping at Cork and Fork for many years, you'll remember Ed as being sort of Dominique's brother, adopted brother by default, and we wish him a very good, happy travels. He's in the south of France at the moment for 3 months, drinking a lot of wine, so that'll be awesome. Anyway, listen, Edu, thank you. Javier, thank you. And Donnie, thank you for organizing this event about 4 or 5 months ago. We appreciate very much everyone attending. Thank you to the audience for being here with us tonight and sharing some great wine. And we wish everyone a good night. We'll end it here. I'll end the meeting for all, and cheers to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A big hug, Danny, and obviously for Ed, a great friend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Salud.
Salud.
Bye bye. Salud.
Bye-bye. See you.